I was just doing something earlier today which involved hydrochloric acid, and it reminded me of how when I was in 8th grade I used to be deathly afraid of this chemical. I got over it, but I was reading in chemistry books about how it could be used to make, among other things, chlorine gas, and how it was very corrosive, it could dissolve metals, and if you mixed it with nitric acid it would dissolve gold. And so I just had a big fear of acids in general. I played with a lot of other corrosive things, but acids I had a big fear of. And I remember at school we were doing experiments with it. If I remember correctly, one thing we did with it was to use it to test if you had real gold or not, because hydrochloric acid will dissolve fool's gold and it will actually make hydrogen sulfide, which has a rotten egg smell. But I was so afraid of the acid that when I would pour acid into a beaker, I would be nervous and I would spill some of it. And I would always ask my classmate to help me with any parts that involve pouring acid. And so months go by and I told my classmate, I think it's time for me to face my fears. And so I picked up the bottle of acid, and everybody's staring at me now because I was kind of infamous for being so nervous that I would spill acid. And I was shaking because of the acid, being nervous about the acid itself, and plus everybody looking at me. I was shaking so badly that I poured most of the acid outside of the beaker, and my teacher was so upset. He didn't realize that I had this mental problem of being fearful of the acid. He didn't see all these kids staring at me. At the time I was kind of shy too. I didn't tell him what had happened, so I took the blame for most of it. I was kind of a scapegoat for most of the thing. But it made me realize that sometimes we get half of the lesson and it's worse than not having anything at all. My peers, they knew nothing about hydrochloric acid. They could pour it just fine. I knew half the information that I needed to about the acid. Eventually I got over my fear, though. I learned more about it. I learned how to, the stuff we had in the classroom wasn't even that strong, actually. Later that year, we were learning about indicator paper and using a meter to indicate, to measure the acid. The acid we had in that classroom was probably weaker than, or at least the pH was higher than a typical can of soda, and I used to drink a lot of soda. I just let it get carried away that it was called hydrochloric acid.